This is working okay. Seems to be all right. Can you let Aaron in, Christian? Thank you. So I'm going to go to full screen. I've had a little issue with this. I may have to go back out and yep, yep, did it again. Let me try one more time. Should be all right this time. That good? Everybody can see titles. So, what is a comprehensive plan? That's probably a fair question for some of you. Um, I doubt that some of you of, can give us kind of the municipality's planning code description. So I'll give you AJ's simple version. The comprehensive plan is really a statement of a community's aspiration for the future. It's a policy plan that talks about what the community wants to be when it grows up. It outlines a series of studies and kind of takeaways, key observations, and gets into recommendations of what the community aspires to achieve over the course of a period of years. Comprehensive plans are mandated by the Commonwealth. So every community in theory is supposed to have a comprehensive plan. And I say in theory because not all communities have comprehensive plans. They're typically have a time frame of 10 to 20 years. So when I say a time frame, meaning as you're developing a comprehensive plan, you're looking out in the future for a decade or 2 decades. In the word, the title comprehensive is what it really is. A comprehensive plan is supposed to be delving into all the typical aspects of a community. It's supposed to be looking at land use, housing, in open space, parks and recreation, infrastructure, transportation, and in some communities into kind of fiscal impacts or fiscal operations. So comprehensive plans, again, are meant to be a very broad view, a look at a community and an understanding of what is going on in the community, so that when you're starting to establish goals and objectives of what you want to be when you grow up, you kind of have a roadmap, and that's the purpose of the comprehensive plan, to be a roadmap of getting there. There's oftentimes an action plan or an actionable list of things that the community should be focusing on or working on as a community, as well as, in this case, township staff, over the course of the next decade or so. So comprehensive plan, not to be confused with a zoning ordinance, is not a law. A zoning ordinance is an ordinance. An ordinance is another word for a law. The zoning ordinance is how properties are regulated, what land uses are allowed on them. A comprehensive plan takes one step back. It's adopted by a resolution, and it's, again, an aspiration. It's an idea or a guidepost of where the community wants to be. So the comprehensive plan oftentimes is a stepping stone to making some zoning amendments or modifications, or making some changes to or additions to subdivision land development ordinance, but they're not the same. And tonight we're going to be focused solely on the comprehensive plan. That's what the township's working on right now. If you have questions on zoning, might be able to field it very quickly, but the real focus is related to the plan itself. We started working with the township back in, oh, Christian, are you recording?
Yes.
Okay, sorry. And I forgot to tell you guys all this. We are recording this. If anybody has an issue with that, feel free to drop off. We are trying to get a record of this so that it can be shared. We did that on the earlier session. Those will get posted either through the township website or shared via email or other postings in terms of Facebook, etc. So that's one thing I failed to say earlier. it is being recorded. But to go back to where I was, the notion of issues in a community may lead to changes eventually in terms of zoning ordinances, et cetera. But our work that we started really in the period when COVID came about, have been doing a lot of due diligence, analyzing statistics, doing field work, a lot of mapping, pulling a lot of information together, working with the elected body as well as the staff, trying to get information together so we could be doing comparisons and analyses. And now we're at a point where it's time to kind of share that with everybody and start a broader discussion in terms of these aspirations. And that's what we're going to try to walk through this evening. So again, the top part of the slide, comprehensive plan is a vision for the future. It defines goals, it defines actionable steps, focuses on land use, parks, recreation, municipal services, etc. The way we're structuring tonight's discussion is going to take you through background information, and then we're going to have some group discussion. I think it went very well in the first session. Hoping that you guys will keep it up. We're using some polling just to start the discussion. So if any of you have ever done Zoom polls, going to be going through a similar technique. Those of you that's a new thing, we'll walk you through. It's really simple, but it's meant to be an icebreaker. The polls are not the end all. Some of you may have participated in the survey, the questionnaire. This is not similar to that. This is merely just kind of gauging everybody that is on the call right now, what their thoughts are, and letting that be a discussion point. What we are asking everybody to do is kind of mute their mics. I haven't heard any. There are a couple open mics, but haven't heard any background feedback or anything like that. If you do have a suggestion, you want to ask a question, whatever, feel free to use the raise the hand, or you could just drop the mic to tell us, and then Christian, Carolyn, and I will take care of it. When we get into the discussion, we did not have an issue the last session. We're asking, because there are a number of people on the phone, be respectful of everybody's time. Let's limit your initial comments to 3 minutes-ish, somewhere in there. And that's just to make sure everybody has the opportunity to talk. That wasn't necessarily the case the last meeting, but just want to preserve that's everybody. If they do want to be able to share a thought, give some insights, they certainly can do that. And again, the last thing on this slide was just the notion of we are recording, and if that's uncomfortable, it's okay. You can drop off. The recordings will be available, like I said, so you can catch up on the meeting, once those will get posted. And Christian, I would imagine those will be available to the township by tomorrow noontime, somewhere in there.
Yes.
Slide that I have on the screen is going to start kind of walking you through some of the information, background information. It gives you really kind of more context. So as we get into some of the discussion points, it gives you some points of reference. The total population in the township currently, that data point is based on probably 2017, 2018 census data. Township population is around 13,100 people. The median age in the township is 48 and a half years. So that's the per capita age, not the average for the household, but per capita. And down at the bottom of the slide, you'll see kind of a breakdown of the age cohorts, as we as planners call them, or the age categories, and the percentage of the portion of the population that falls in that age group. So you'll see over on the far left side, over on this side of the screen where my cursor is a newborn to 9 years old. About 8% of the population is in that age category, as opposed to when I move over into this category, the 60 to 69-year-old category, about 16% of the population, and actually just a hair more than 16% of the population is in that category. The important thing in terms of the slide, interpreting the data, is the vast majority of the population of the township so is between 40 and 69 years old. So I think it's fair to say the community is silvering or graying. The community is getting a little older in terms of the population demographics. That's not unique, particularly in Allegheny County. Allegheny County is one of the oldest counties in the United States. And it's not unique in terms of kind of your surroundings, the region. You know, the Mon Valley has similar statistics, and really kind of the southern portion of Allegheny County has similar statistics. But the takeaway as we get further in the presentation is that that population in terms of as it continues to age will be moving towards the right of the slide. What we need to be able to do as a community is make sure that we're having young families with children moving into the community. So there's always this evolution in terms of the community. And that's the really kind of the key takeaway on that. From a demographic standpoint, on the racial side, the township clearly is heavily white in terms of 96%, a small portion in terms of African American, small portion in terms of Hispanic, and a small portion related to multiracial persons. Not a surprise, again, and nothing to kind of look beyond in terms of that, other than the demographics in the county, in the state, and the country are slowly changing. So over time, that heavy percentage in terms of the Caucasian or the white population is going to change. I was working on a report the other day. The tipping point that they're projecting is around 2045 in the United States. And that's where we will no longer have a majority race in the country, that we really truly become kind of multiracial in terms of the demographics. In terms of income, next slide, the median household income, where my cursor is located right now, is about $66,000 for income per household. This demographic, different than the population, is coming from 2010 census data. I can't do anything about that. It's just the way the Census Bureau reports the information. Population, they do projections that are pretty accurate on a much more regular basis. Income, they'll do once every 10 years. And the bar graph is illustrating then the percentage of the portion of the households that fall in the income levels. So on the far left side is 37% of the township households is under 50,000. The next one is the 50 to 100. Again, a similar percentage, 37% is in that category. And then 23 a quarter is the 100 to 200,000, and then a small portion greater than 200,000. Moving topics now out of some of the statistics, and we'll come back to some later statistics, but that start focusing on kind of the character of the community and what's going on in the geography, the lay of the land. This is looking at land use in a very, very simplistic way. The community clearly has a rural, semi-rural, suburban character. There are pockets that, like as you move up towards Boston, as an example, that clearly it's more village, urban, almost borough in terms of density and scale and character. But largely the community, from my perspective, has that semi-rural character. And to the point of all the acreage in the township, 8,294, 59% of the township is on that low intensity side, meaning its land use is that are largely open space, agriculture, cemeteries, golf courses, parks. So not even counting single family homes, commercial development. So a good portion, 60% of the township is really rural in character. And I think that's one of the very unique things about the township, particularly being an urbanized county like Allegheny County. There's a charm and there's a character that you're not finding in a lot of portions of Allegheny County, and that's from our perspective, that's an opportunity area. Of the undeveloped land, or kind of that rural character, there is lands that we consider undeveloped that could support development. There's about 4,000 acres, 4,100 acres, kind of the statistic right here. If we took the densities and the number of people per square mile or per acre that the township currently has, and just pretended fast forwarded and all that land developed, it would actually have the potential of tripling the population of the township. So that notion of how to protect important lands, or where do we encourage development and how do we manage that, is really a role of the comprehensive plan. And so on this slide, to me, that's one of the major takeaways. And then the last important thing is located down here in the lower right corner of the slide, this particular statistic. Half of that undeveloped land does have some sort of conservation protections. So it may be in a farmland preservation program. It's not necessarily protected in perpetuity. So there could be development there in some way, shape, or form in the future. And just in terms of making it a little bit more understandable, the little green dots really show where those protected lands are. So if you follow where my cursor is, that'll give you an idea in terms of where those lands are without getting into individual parcels. Taking kind of land use to a different dimension, focusing on housing, about 42% of the developed land in the township is related to single family houses. So while there's a lot of greenery, a lot of undeveloped land, the majority of the developed land is single family. So I would typify, characterize the community as being a single family type of community. There's very limited, only 4% of the developed land is on commercial and industrial. And that's been one of the discussions in terms of what does that mean in terms of the tax base, et cetera. But that's a fact as today. And so hopefully when we get into some of tonight's discussions, we'll be able to kind of delve into that one a little bit further. This one I pointed out a little bit ago in terms of how much is actually protected land. And the one thing I just want to add to this that I didn't say previously, what is important about that is that's a considerable amount of land that has been protected. Again, I think it is a very unique thing about Elizabeth Township. There are a lot of other communities that would aspire, they would love to be able to have that amount of protected land. Going back to a little bit of demographics, and still related to housing though. The circle or the pie that's over on the far left side where my cursor is focusing on housing in terms of what is occupied versus vacant. And when we first looked at that statistic, I almost fell off my chair because it's very unusual to see that 93% of the housing units, of which there's about 6,000, that's the statistic down at the lower left corner, 93% of the 6,000 housing units have somebody living there. Whether they own it or they rent it, that's a different issue, but that's a pretty phenomenal number. The middle pie is focusing on, and it's just reinforcing the kind of the observation from a land use standpoint, that the majority of the structures in the community are single family homes. And then the far right pie over here, while it says owner occupied, and don't want you to get confused with occupy that's over on the left side. This is, of all those housing units, how many of them are actually owned by the person living in the house, as opposed to being rented. Again, 81% is a pretty phenomenal number. And what that says to us, to Carolyn and Christian and myself as planners, the importance of that is there's stability. There's stability in your neighborhoods, there's stability in the community, because you don't have the same kind of transient population. You don't have people coming in the community and only living for 3 years and moving out, and then having a new set of households or new set of residents coming in. Last important point, again, Elizabeth Township is not unique. The fact that it's at the very bottom of the page, the 2.2 persons per housing unit, that's the density of the house. Allegheny County, that number is equivalent to Elizabeth Township's, but it's one that you need to be mindful of, because as the population in the community continues to get a little older, that household number is going to continue to go down. A lot of your homes were constructed to have families in, and you're not necessarily in the future may not have the same number of families. And so one of the discussion points that has come up repeatedly through the comprehensive planning, kind of the analysis, the first stage of this, is what do we do about that? And how do we encourage residents, new residents, to move into the community? And it's an important point, and we'll hopefully get some discussion. A little bit demographic or information related to housing value. Again, this is an old statistic. This is from 2010. So candidly, you almost have to inflate this by 20% just to account for inflation over the last decade. But you'll see again the bars under 100,000 for the house. About 1/3 of the housing stock falls in that category. Over half of the housing stock fits in the 100 to 200, and then you can see the rest moving to the right. The median value, so the middle value, is 125, but again, you need to increase that to get it to today's standard. Probably add another 20% to that. One of the things that we discovered through kind of the survey, the questionnaire that was out, was the length of how long people have resided in the community. That was people giving their honest opinion, telling us how long they've lived there. This is coming from census data, and it's just reinforcing everything that we learned in the survey, in the questionnaire. 31% of the households have resided in the township since before 1990. That's over 30 years. That's amazing. That's a testament to why people want to be in the township and the quality of life that the township presents. And just going through the next two, the 1990s to the 2000s, and then the 2000s to the 2010, 16% and 22%, all phenomenal numbers. And what brings a smile to my face, in addition to that long stability in terms of long-term residents, is the fact that in 2010, 2014, there was that 25%, had been living there since that time. So that's fundamentally the last decade. And what we need to understand is the aspirations of the community of new residents, so that there's constantly kind of lifeblood in a community in terms of population coming and going, so to speak, but on long tenure. One of the things that also has been talked about is the slow growth, though. So in terms of the township, 3 new homes were constructed each year, and that's going over a 10-year period. That's slow growth. There's other portions of Allegheny County that will be considerably faster. One of the things that clearly came out in terms of the last meeting, the earlier meeting tonight, was, while there probably wants to be some growth, at the same time, we don't want to have rampant growth, because we would lose the qualities that brought us to the community in the first place. So that idea of what the balance is. So hopefully tonight we could talk about balance a little bit more. And then the last demographic or statistic there, 95% of the residents lived in the same house as they did last year. That's a great statistic. It just indicates, it keeps coming back to the stability that the community has. Another aspect in terms of the comp plan that we're delving into is really understanding on the fiscal side. I'm not going to read through all these numbers, try to get to kind of the hot topics. We started looking at budget expenditures and where spending was going in the township just to get a better sense. These are all based on the 2020 budget. So things that were taken care of in November, December of last year in terms of approvals, that's what the numbers are based on. The municipal expenditures are expected to be around $7.8 million. That equates to about $589 of expenditure per capita. So that's per person. And then you can see the municipal tax based on the home value. That's a very simple metric in terms of what each house, in terms of the median value, brings to the township from a tax standpoint. We also started to look at then how that kind of general budget gets broken up, looked at public safety, public works, etc. About 36% of the general fund goes to public works. So there's 63 miles of roads that the township needs to maintain. And you'll see that equates to about almost $45,000 per mile. The number of vehicles, the number of employees that are in public works. Cut it, the budget through public safety. 29% of the general fund is spent on public safety. And I will be, make sure I make this point since I made it the last presentation. That's a fantastic, that number is a good, healthy number. There's a lot of communities, Carolyn can tell you, we often will see public safety is 45 to 50% of the township, the community's budget. That becomes almost the dominant, at 50%, that is the dominant expenditure. It begins to take away from other services. And I think you guys have found a balance. And then when you look down the number of officers and cruisers and the number of violent crimes per 1,000 persons population, you're a really safe community. So that notion of not needing to overspend on public safety and still being such a high quality in terms of a safe community, you're doing a phenomenal job. 5 fire companies and response rate of 8.5 minutes. And then cutting from Parks and Recreation. Here I'll say you probably don't spend as much money as some other communities, about 2% is in the general fund. There's about 1,300 acres of parkland. There's 62 that is maintained by the township. So that means there's some other acreage. I think there's 1,100 over Round Hill. There's some that is related to Dead Man's Hollow, Allegheny Passage, etc. That makes up the 1,300. But the number of acres of open space that you have or parkland per 1,000 persons is phenomenal. Carolyn and I and Christian work on park and recreation plans and all over the East Coast, and there's communities that would aspire to have even 20 acres per 1,000 capital. So it's a fantastic number. And that's one of the things that hopefully we'll talk about is how you take advantage of the recreation, just the abundance of recreation that's in the community. And there's some other key points there. Open space, just to go back to the map, open space, as we defined it, Round Hill Park, the Great Allegheny Passage, or the Riverfront Trail, the Yawk River, the various neighborhood parks, playgrounds, community center, golf courses, athletic fields, and hunting preserves, private, hunting grounds, etc. We did do a questionnaire, and I'm only giving you a few of the questions, but for the sake of time tonight. But one of the things that we definitely wanted to share is, and the one question was the top 3 reasons why people, or top reason you chose to live in Elizabeth Township, and reporting back what the top 3 are. Number 1, proximity to family. Number 2, quality of school district. Repeatedly, quality of school district comes up. And then 3, location within the region. And proximity to employment, meaning people were able to live and work very close to each other. That's what they meant. when you went into the questionnaires and you looked at the detailed responses, that's fundamentally what they were coming at. The top 3 most visited open spaces, not a surprise in terms of Round Hill, Allegheny Passage, and then specifically spending time on the yacht. One of the questions in terms of the survey, completely different than all the other ones, was really trying to get at what people do for goods and services in the community. If you remember earlier, I had mentioned that there's only 4% of the developed area is for commercial and industrial. What we were trying to understand is where they did their shopping, where they went to the insurance agent, where they did their banking, etc. And you'll see kind of these bars break down those different goods and services into categories. And then the legend that's down at the bottom of the lower left corner of the slide breaks it into those categories based on the color system. Green is that household or that person that filled in the survey, the questionnaire, said they did everything within the township for that particular thing. So in this case, a number of people, almost 35% in terms of this one right here, which is related to dining. They're saying that 35% of the dining stays in the township. They're not leaving the township. There is a big piece that is leaving the township, and that's probably almost 55%, maybe closer to 60%. So what each of these colors was trying to do was give us kind of a window of where people were doing their kind of commercial activity. And if there was an opportunity in terms of trying to get people to spend more time in the township. And the key thing on this one, on the amount of blue. So from our perspective, there are quite a few people, dark blue. There are quite a few people that are leaving the township to go do things like grocery shopping, go to the bank. And that would be one of the things that comp plans typically will get into or can get into is should there be more land reserved for those types of activities? Are there some policies that should be adopted that the township helps support or encourage business development within the township itself? And obviously, not to kind of belabor the point, that does also have some ramifications related to tax base, etc. I'm going to stop my share here and going to go back so everybody can see each other. Does anybody have questions relative to the rapid fire stuff I just took you through? Before we get into group discussion, but any questions on any of that material, any of the maps, any of the statistics, any thoughts, any observations you guys have that you want to share with other people? Does anything jump out as alarming?
I have a comment. One of the things in your survey, it kind of expressed the what we have as far as like natural things in the community, like the trails, the river, the land that's available. I don't think that stuff is promoted very well, and I think that's one of the problems that we have in the township. I don't think people sort of appreciate that, and I think that should be a focus to try to attract people.
So promotion of amenities and promotion of the offerings in the community.
Right.
Okay.
And I also, one other thing, I think that I've heard in different meetings people complaining like there's nothing here to attract young families into the community. I think it's really important that we focus or even try to advertise the school district. Like Central Elementary School is a blue ribbon school, And I don't think that's in the news. I even wonder how many people in the community know about that. And one way to get a community to get people to move here, particularly young families, is for the school district. And I think it's important to highlight that.
Well, and to kind of further what you're saying, it showed you the statistic that showed that's why a lot of people chose to live in the community in the first place or stay in the community is because of the quality of school district. And Carolyn, what do you think is fair to say? Probably 80% of all of us that are on this Zoom call probably make those same decisions no matter where we live. Schools are incredibly important. And
Agree.
David, what you just brought up, other people have expressed as well. So I'm glad you got the ball rolling, but a lot of people have noted we need to promote the amenities of the community and definitely make it known that you have I was going to say a bad word there, really darn good school, system. And that should be something that you use to your advantage to attract people. Exactly what you're saying.
Yeah.
Other thoughts?
So one general comment is that you're trying to attract new families into the community. We need new home and housing developments, new construction, new opportunities, because those are what young families are looking for, is those new and homes.
Aaron, keep it coming. Give me a little bit more. What does, and again, I'm just looking at your video. What does a younger family like yours, what do they need?
We're looking for new construction. I searched for years for property in this township to build on. Sewage happens for a long time, were a problem. And we ended up buying another home in the township, but newer developments are what younger families are looking for. They want the bigger homes. They want the communities that have families that are all growing up in the same age. And along with that, we need to support businesses. I mean, there are very few businesses in the community. We talk about growth and development. The more businesses we have, the more businesses are going to succeed. You can't just have one or two. People are looking for those shopping destinations. Why do people go out? Where do they go? They're going to do multiple stops and doing multiple of their errands in the same area.
Okay, good.
I share a lot of what Aaron shares, and my name is ironically Aaron too. So I have a big family with young kids. I have twins that are going to be doing May, so that'll be 6 kids for us total. I'm not Catholic, so don't ask. But
right.
To that point, we searched for a house. Obviously, we need a big house. We're looking for a piece of property to build on, looking for a development. Kind of shared the same issue with the sewage tap in. For us, that's definitely an important thing as we're looking to expand our house. With just the amount of kids that we have at this stage of the game. And we're looking outside the community. I've lived here my whole life. I'm 37. We are looking at potentially moving out. I work in the city. My wife stays home. The school districts are great. The athletic programs are great. Overall, fairly happy with the township. The other part of that is, as we are, looking for bigger houses, that means your school taxes are going to go up. I've been involved with Elizabeth Township Commissioner meetings in the past. Part of that high tax base that the individuals pay is due to the lack of businesses, due to the lack of industry. And that's something that if we are going to push forward with, we need to change.
Okay.
Could I say something?
Yeah, Dennis, go ahead.
Yes, hi. I'm Dennis McAndrew. I have a difficulty with some of the directions we're taking because it seems still to me to lack one essential thing, and that is a real committed vision for the 21st century. And no matter where you come from politically, I don't particularly care, but we are all going to share in a tremendous environmental either catastrophe or opportunity within possibly within the remainder of my life, but certainly to the gentleman who just said he has 6 children, certainly within their lifetime. And therefore, I think that our vision should be to be an epitome on the front of Time magazine for this unique township in Pennsylvania that really visioned the future and saw where we had to go in order to be able to survive and prosper. That I don't find here. It's like rearranging the deck chairs, but not noticing that we're on the Titanic. So I think that should be our thing. Our guiding principle should be, several people talked about their housing. They're looking for housing. We should have the greenest developers possible, the highest ratings possible in our housing, in any type of business, let alone even industry that might come here. The exact same principles and vision must be followed. Otherwise, we will continue to be written off as that cute area down in southern Allegheny County that doesn't have many expectations at all. And the people who go there have a nice time. They go shopping, they die, and that's it. I think we can do much better than that with a powerful environmental vision for the future. That's why I'm here.
I'm writing
That's all.
furiously, trying to keep up with you, Dennis.
Okay.
You threw out a lot there. Other thoughts?
AJ, I think there's one part of that goes right into also the April discussion that we're setting up. So we want to keep that in mind.
Okay, Steve, Tiffany, I think you get.
Yeah, my name is Steve. It's my wife, Tiffany. We're lifelong residents of the township. We actually graduated from high school and then moved into the community. And one issue that I kind of see on the horizon is,
Sweethearts. Were you
I'm sorry?
sweethearts? Were you sweethearts?
yeah, why not? And actually, Mrs. Hearn, I saw her on the call. She was my health teacher, my homeroom teacher. But anyway, one issue that I see, not that it's an issue, but that there is a lot of people that have lived here for their entire lives, like Tiffany and myself. And then when we go to the soccer games, we know all of the people that are there. People that are coming into the community are outsiders per se. So as this wave of people might move out of the township, pass away, their houses go up on the market, it's going to be, we just have to be careful as residents of the township to welcome people into the community that might not necessarily have ties to the community. I've heard a lot of positive feedback from people, on the soccer field or on the baseball field who moved in from, let's say, Baldwin or Brentwood or McKeesport or Versailles. And they have a lot of nice things to say about the community, but they don't know anybody. So I think we have to be very, very careful about welcoming people into our community who didn't go to Elizabeth Ford High School or aren't from the area. So, I try to be cognizant of it myself, but I think that's something that we need to address moving forward.
Good.
And I think we do have a good reputation, and people do want to move here from what I understand, but there's no houses. I mean, even if you look on Realtor or Zillow, they're gone in 2 seconds. I mean, I know it's just a hot market right now, but I think Aaron made the point that people are looking for new construction. And I have a brother who, same thing, he's lived here forever, and he's looking out towards Rostraver, and because they're having the new construction, the taxes are a little bit lower, the school districts, it's decent. But I hate for him to move. So I think that Erin hit the nail on the head when she said new construction will bring in people and keep them here longer.
So it's not.
Isn't a deterrent of new construction because of the problem that we have with sewage? Isn't sewage the issue?
Partially, yeah.
Yeah.
AJ, do you know, is there any remedy in sight for the sewage issues, or is that sort of another separate issue?
That's a separate issue. We'll be able to speak to that as a part of the comp plan, but that's something. There's more complexity to some of that, and to some degree, we've had some discussions about this, that there clearly are some geographic areas within the township where the sewer issue is probably not as big of a issue. The question is that where development should really be directed? So what I'm saying is the fact that the sewage has been a challenge in the past has allowed you guys to have a lot of open space protected. And so to some degree, you haven't gone through what some communities in Allegheny County, Westmoreland, if you go out, on 30, there's some of those communities on 30 that are almost the poster child of they didn't have enough planning in place, and so they got hopscotch development, and they've lost their charm and they've lost their character. So I guess what I'm quietly saying is the one thing that I think the plan is going to try to do is take advantage of what some people have said became a problem and turn that into the fact that the growth has been slow. That's okay. Let's figure out where the best place for it to be, encourage it, figure out how to solve the sore issues in those areas, and kind of move ahead with that game plan. And to go back to Dennis, his point to me, that's a part of a vision, in terms of being able to frame out that kind of strategy.
Now, AJ, is there, moving forward, if we do decide to build homes, or are they looking for business to support the building of homes, like retail, and the other question is there any thought about infrastructure, like updating the electrical grid, obviously the sewage issue, the water, anything like that? Like, we need to be able to maintain the infrastructure that we already have and then add to it and be able to support new infrastructure. And then even the township has to be in charge of plowing, salting, maintaining roads along the way. So it's a give and take. And I just hope the township is aware of that. And if we do decide to move in that direction, that we're planning for that.
But again, that's why the one survey question was on there, was where you're getting your goods and service. So there has been discussion of what is that balance. There's only 4% of the land area, the developed land areas for commercial industrial. Is that really enough? Is there opportunities to be able to increase that? And then obviously, to your point of what I call concurrency, that the infrastructure is there or falls right behind to be able to support that. So those are all things that the township is starting to delve into. So, yep.
I'd like to make one other comment, if I could, very quickly. And it would follow on something that Steve said about extending the welcome to people who come into the community. Communities are not, they don't happen just because you move in next to each other. It takes a lot of events and a lot of work, because we're working against community because we live in the suburbs, where it's just so easy and comfortable to pull in your garage, to close the door, and to hell with everybody else. I'll go out and get what I want when I want it. We need more community events. One thing that is terribly lacking in this community is any focus on a decent library, using all the media, and not just books in the library, all the media available today, all the programs that a community could focus through a library. I went to a wonderful one in Brentwood the other day, or last year, I should say, before COVID. And it was marvelous. It was alive with people of all ages and programs. We don't have something like that. I cannot tell you a place to go and get a cup of coffee and talk to some of your neighbors. I don't know where it is. I am not a drinker. I don't go to bars. Yes, tomorrow's St. Patrick's Day and I'm 400% Irish, but I don't do any of that. I drink tea. So, I mean, come on. We need a place where the human infrastructure can be built.
Yep.
Because without that, you have people living in the same area, but you don't have a community.
Yep.
Well, one of the problems is that we're not a walking community. We're a car community. There aren't sidewalks anywhere. And I think when you live in a community that you can walk to resources, it makes all the difference in the world. The only time you see people walking is in your own little particular neighborhood, like here on Karen Drive. I mean, you see people walking down the street, but as far as like walking along Rock Run Road or 48, I mean, it's impossible to do. And that creates an issue, I think.
Okay. All right. Jill, you have been patiently waiting.
Yeah, I grew up in Forward Township and then just went to Cal and moved back to Elizabeth Township. We lived on Blaine Hill for a little while, and then we actually did build a house here in the township. And I'm not sure what the sewage issues are, but I know for us, the sewage issue was there was a $4,700 tap in. The original paperwork they gave us was old. Once we put it in, they came and wouldn't approve it. And we had to pull it out and put in new water lines. So I will say, if we are going to have new developments and that kind of thing, I think those processes need to be much smoother, because all it said to me was, I mean, we had to work so hard to get this house built in the township. And there were some things that could have been so easy that were so difficult. And I will say, I hope there's not any township, people on right now, but we never got a building permit or occupancy permit at the end, because the building guy had quit and they had someone coming from another community. They cashed our check for the permit, for the occupancy permit, and never sent anyone. And we finally just moved in. It was just the absolute most chaotic, worst process ever. So I would say one of the things that we need to look at, if there are going to be a lot of new developments, is just making that process easier and smoother for people that are going to be doing it, because you have to really want to build a house here.
Okay, so customer service, even at the township side, clear, like you said, the processes, getting that clear more seamless, meaning it shouldn't become an obstacle or burden to somebody like yourself that wants to invest in property and build a house.
For sure.
Okay.
I think that is probably the first part of the welcoming.
Yep, gotcha. All right, Christian, let's go to, because this is a group of talkers. I think the poll will provoke some more discussion. So I think let's move into that one. Is that fair?
Sure. Do you want to maybe pull up your slides to kind of introduce the
Yeah,
character question?
Yep, I'm going to try to get back here to my share. Again, if any of you have not done a poll, it's pretty seamless. Putting up the slide.
While you're doing that, AJ, just gonna identify, I appreciate Joe putting his comment in the chat. We captured that one, so thank you.
Okay, we're gonna put a poll out, which is gonna really, there's 3 questions. The first question is related to, of these topics or other ones that we didn't necessarily think of, what are the things that you think are the most important to defining the character or the identity of the township? And so there's a question that's related to the built environment in terms of what's been developed. There is then on the natural side, and then there's on the social side. So Dennis, I'm going to steal your word, almost the human infrastructure of, yes, trees and birds and farmland is a part of the community, but there's also the people side, right? And so the poll that I believe, did it all pop up on your screen?
Yeah.
So if you put your cursor in it, you should be able to scroll up. So you'll see question 1 first. As you scroll up, you'll see 2, and you'll scroll a little further and you go to 3. Please choose only 2 for each of the questions. Okay. So keep yourself under control. You may say, I like all of them. Don't choose them all. We're forcing you to pick 2. And once you have selected your 2, then the submit at the very bottom, when you scroll all the way to the bottom, it should become live. Hit that, and then we can see the result.
And if you're doing it on a mobile device or something, it should pop up in your window straight away for you to use the toggles.
We have over 60%.
Yep. So we got a couple slackers in there. We're deep thinkers. That was a joke. About 75%. And Carolyn, I couldn't see how many were by phone.
There's about 5 right now.
It's harder for them to do this, which we apologize. Christian, you may want to call it because it doesn't look like. We'll give you guys another. Okay,
Okay, I just closed
you're
it.
good. You're good. You're good. So in terms of results, so I'm on question 1. You'll see, actually, Christian, this is dead spot on with the first session, correct?
Yes.
Over 80% in that session said the same thing. Your residential neighborhoods is what you're about. That's your character. A close second and third is low traffic volume. In terms of not heavily trafficked roads, so probably implies safety. And then landmarks, historic sites, places of worship, monuments, etc. And again, those let's see, then following, which is a little different than the first group, the large lot with dispersed buildings and the commercial development was hanging in the end. Who had marked other? Would you care to share if you did other, what your other was that you're thinking? Okay. So again, I think between the 2 sessions tonight, very consistent in terms of what those responses are. And clearly, the residential side is that's your important thing. Moving to the next one. What's the most important natural character? This one's a little different now, right, Christian? The other ones were
Yep.
more evenly split. So 73% on creeks and rivers, 59 on parks, 36 on woodlands, and then the greenery and the farmland. And I think I'm going to stop the share. Mr. Ball, that the farmland was higher, correct? This go around farm is higher than it was the first session. And one of the things that came out in terms of last discussion, probably a lot of people respond to greenery kind of in that same context as farmland. Clearly, all of them, it doesn't matter if one's 73% and the other's 59, all of them really kind of are what make the community in terms of in that setting of the residential neighborhoods. And then the third one, what is the most important social aspect or character of the township? And again, very consistent with the first session tonight. The friendly neighborhoods was at the top of the pile. Yours is a little bit more evenly split. Small businesses next, youth and family activities, and then community events. And then Mr. McAndrew, I think you're saying from your perspective, we need more community events. There needs to be more community.
Yes, and I think on that one, I was also the other on the bottom for a combination of a community center, library, cafe, some gathering place where you can build this community.
Okay, got it. Got it. Okay, Christian, you want to close that one down?
Sure.
I'll go back to share screen. I can get that out of my way. So, kind of coming to the close here, from our perspective, through the 6 months that we've been working with the community, or 8 months, so three key drivers or influences seem to be kind of emerging. And I think everything that we said that's on the screen right now, you guys have touched on largely tonight. This notion of evolving housing market, how to take advantage of your open space, and how do you leverage some opportunities, and then focus on terms of kind of the municipal government. Jill, you didn't say it quite in this way, but that notion of clear and concise in terms of policies and procedures, to me, I equate that to customer service. To some degree, what the township delivers in terms of the service is no different than if you went to Disney, and the experience that you get at Disney should be equivalent, right? So this notion of these three things, Christian, you want to pull your poll up? Want to kind of get your sense in terms of which one, you get only one this time, is the most important from your perspective. We're forcing you, don't start griping that you think all of them are important. We're trying to make you really make a hard, fast decision.
And we do have another option if there's another driver out there that you'd like to bring up.
All right, Christian, it looks like that may be it.
All right.
Take that back. Hold on. Give it another couple seconds there. All right, that's the 22. So, Christian, this is a tad different than the first session, right?
Yes.
So open space is 43%. The housing at 26%, and focus in terms of municipal government, 22%. The others, the two others, anybody want to kind of express what the other was?
I clicked one of the others. Like I said previously, I think that the school district should be like a focus. I think that will attract young families. And I also agree with Dennis. And I think that we have to take whatever we do, whatever development that takes place here in Elizabeth Township, I think it needs to have a green aspect to it. I think that's where we're headed as a country. I think that's where we're headed globally. And I think that we should include that in our focus. No matter what we do, there has to have an environmental green aspect to it.
Okay. All right. Christian, I think we got time for the other one.
All right. Do you want to move to the question slide?
Yeah, I'm trying to get over here. So this is now drilling down. It's forcing you guys to have to think even further. That if you had $100 to invest in any of these township services, where would you put your $100? Dennis, don't come and say that you want to put 25 here and 50 there and 25. You have to put all 100. You're all in. I can see you. I know you're one of those guys.
Yeah.
Now,
Christian.
AJ, just to clarify, we are going to allow you to pick 2 out of the 4
That's fair. That's.
for this poll.
You want to pop that one up?
Sure.
This is kind of exciting watching. This is like America's Got Talent and the polling, watching the. Come on, public safety. Come on.
Don't influence them, AJ.
All right. Kristen, I think you could close that one.
All right.
All right. So not overwhelming, but it's a good bit ahead. Parks and Recreation. Second was support and attract businesses. And third was roads and utilities, and lagging behind was public safety.
AJ, if I can, I think that some of the comments that we've heard throughout the process to date about the potential for tying some of the natural resources to business and economy is something also to consider, right, as part of what we have
Yeah.
going on.
Chris, do you want to say anything?
I'd love to, and thanks for letting me participate, AJ. For those folks who I haven't been introduced to yet, my name is Chris Corbrand. I work with the Pennsylvania Environmental Council, and we are wrapping up an assessment that is looking at connecting some of the county parks to each other. This is a project that we're working with the Allegheny County Parks Foundation on, and one of the main connections that has just so much potential is linking the Great Allegheny Passage with Round Hill. And Elizabeth Township is positioned so well to have both of these regional assets so close together with just like a little bit of space in between. And it really speaks to a lot of the things that I've heard so far. You know, the need for social space. We've seen trails become such an asset in the social space with social distancing and having to get out to find some different ways to connect with your neighbors and do some programming in that regard. And it's just great to hear. I'm impressed with this group overall, and I didn't want to interrupt earlier, but so much positivity, and everyone has done a great job of not only identifying the assets, but constructively identifying some of the challenges. So thanks for letting me join the meeting. Happy to be a part of it. Always happy to talk more about the projects if we need to.
Thank you.
Thanks, Chris. All right, Jill, you have a question?
Yeah, no, can I just say one more thing? I work for a technology startup, and a lot of the people that I work with are much younger than me. And I will say that I wonder if there isn't an opportunity. I realize like the people right now, like that want to start families and want bigger homes. The problem that I hear with the people that I work with are that they can't find smaller, affordable homes, which I think we kind of have a lot of. I mean, we have a lot of smaller homes, and I know when they go up for sale, they're more affordable. And I wonder if there isn't an opportunity somewhere there, like maybe we have to skip the generation that's like, hey, we're right now having kids and we need a lot more space, to like the people that are just coming out of college and like don't want to stay in the city. It just occurred to me as we were talking that I have 2 people on my team looking for houses right now that are just completely priced out of the market, like staying close to the city.
I guess a comment that I have on that note is the data. I know, I think we talked a little bit about it. It's like we're looking at 2 years. I bought and sold a house in this township. My house wasn't on the market more than 4 days, and it was contingent. And I think that's the trend that we're seeing is the minute homes go up, you know, 3-bedroom homes, 2-bedroom homes, they go up on the market. In this township, they are scoffed up quick.
Yeah, we sold our house on Blaine Hill before we built this house in less than a day.
Mm-hmm. And it's fantastic. I mean, it shocks me how expensive the real estate is going for in this township. So I think we are getting that moves, but I think if we even had, if there were more homes available, I think those would also be selling as quickly. I think the inventory is just low.
2 comments, if I could. The first is that I think it is important that we look at building new homes, but I think that we have to be careful because you're going to lose the quaint neighborhoods that you have right now. by moving in that direction. I'm not in agreement or disagreement for building new homes. I just think that we have established neighborhoods, and it's kind of nice to be in an established neighborhood where you have trees, bushes that are tall. You're not looking at your neighbor sitting on their back porch because there's nothing between you and your neighbor, like some of those plans in North Hills. And the second comment is that we actually just flipped a house in Elizabeth Township, and we have a buyer moving in from Detroit, Michigan, and two of her criteria was acreage, and she wanted to be close to the Gap Trail. And I could not believe that somebody from Detroit, Michigan wants to move to Little Boston because they're close to the Gap Trail. I was floored by that. And, as I've my interest has peaked back into biking because I did grow up in Little Boston, on a Sunday afternoon or Saturday afternoon, you drive to the Boston field and it looks like Ohio Pile down there. There's tons of people, there's kayaks, there's boats, there's canoes. So I think that we need to really look at that Gap Trail as a huge asset and selling point for the community.
It is. Yep.
And even just the gateway to Pittsburgh. I always say that if we could, I know McKeesport's a little bit closer, but get some startup companies where you build a little office building and people could ride their bikes from Pittsburgh, put a shower in the office, they could shower, they could work the day and then ride their bike back home to whatever neighborhood they're working in, or wherever they're living, but just kind of make that commute on the bike. So that's all for tonight.
I do agree with your comment on housing. I think that we have to be aware and methodical about the developers that are developing the township, because I think we don't want to be this plan of tons of, I'm going to lack of saying, Ryan and Miranda homes that are just cookie cutter and in 5 years are apart. We want something that is going to be fit the feel of the township.
Okay, I'm not trying to put words, I'm trying to frame what I think I hear you guys saying, and I'm going back to the first session when a gentleman had raised. It's not that you're, Steve, in your case, it's not that you're averse to seeing growth. You just don't want to lose the qualities of the community that brought you there, or in your case, kept you there in the first place, right? So striking that balance, the guy had specifically said, we have to find as a community that balance where we can have new development, broaden the tax base, but also still have that open space. And I feel like I'm living in a rural community, right? Okay.
It looks like Scott has his hand up if you want to join in.
Yes, he does.
Yes, thanks for having me, guys. And thanks for putting this on, by the way. This is some really good stuff getting put out here. I listened in on the first session and just echo some of your comments you just made there and many of the comments here. Housing is a concern in this township, and it has been for quite some time. And it was due to the sewage issue, not being able to build new homes because you couldn't get the tap-ins. Our sewage facilities were not able to handle the sewage, and the township, blame whoever wants to be blamed on this one, kicked the can down the road for far too many years. Right now, you just have a low stock of sellable homes. People want to move to Elizabeth Township. I grew up in this township. I've been here 50 years plus. I left for a few short years while I served in the military and came back because I love this area and want to raise my kids here. The reason most of the people that I have spoken with, and this comes from running a nonprofit in the township that deals a lot with the community and gets their feedback. Most people move to this community, and I think your little polls here show the same. People move to this township because it's quiet, it's residential, but yet you're 20 minutes from anything you want, half an hour from anything you want. And I think people want to keep it that way. The township has done a lot of hard work, and kudos to the commissioners, a few of them are on this call, for getting the sewage straightened out. So within the next year or so, we're hopefully it all falls into plan and falls into place. You are going to be seeing some development within the township housing, primarily in some areas where housing was started and stopped because of the sewage. The infrastructure is there to continue building, and I think these guys are well aware of that. But planning has to be done properly. I do have to take note to one of your slide pages here. I think it was on page 9 where you talked about the acreage in the township that is undeveloped, roughly about half of the township. If you really looked at how much of that property that is undeveloped is actually buildable,
Yeah.
because our geography in this township makes it very, very difficult to do anything. Everybody wants a little bit of commercial. You're never going to see big commercial, your Targets, your fast food chains in Elizabeth Township. One, because of, from a business standpoint, Dan, you'll know this one more than anybody. These guys set boundaries up. They're not going to build within 25 miles of another restaurant or 50 miles of another store. So you got this little bedroom community that can feed to your North Huntingtons, your West Mifflins, your going out towards Monroeville. You're never going to see the large developments here in this township, but you can have a lot of small business, and small business drives this nation. Contrary to what a lot of people say, but we do have a lot of problems with building in this municipality just because of the geography of the township. Your roads can't handle large volumes of traffic. A lot of your roads in Elizabeth Township are barely wide enough to legally paint a double yellow line down the center of it. So, I mean, without taking people's front yards away from them, you're not going to change that. And I think the commissioners know that, and that very well much needs to be part of the discussions. And I'm sure these guys all well know that I'm very much part of what they do on a monthly basis, and they will be hearing my comments on that. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, we're running over a little bit. Any other thoughts, Dennis?
I'll just sort of make this my conclusion. As I said earlier, I'm 400% Irish, and tomorrow is St. Patrick's Day. So when you wear green tomorrow, just don't wear it because it's St. Patrick's Day, but let it remind you of the green vision for the future for Elizabeth Township. That's it. Happy St. Patrick's Day.
You were working on that the whole meeting.
I was.
Any other thoughts?
AJ, I just also want to toss out, going back to the Trails and Rec perspective, having those assets nearby is definitely a draw or an opportunity for that small business development. Having an outfitter setting up any sort of shuttling or concessions using the Gap or Round Hill or the Yacht. Those are kind of low buy-in opportunities that can have a pretty big return, and good for not only residents but resident attraction. All those good buzzwords.
Well, and Chris, to your point, knowing that you guys are doing stuff, in terms of trying to evaluate trail connections and some of the other efforts that are going on in the county, this comp plan for the township is going to have to take that on, I think, a little differently than a lot of other plans, because I think there is such a tremendous opportunity. It's not the end all be all, but it is clearly in the fabric of the community, and needs to be looked at, from an economic standpoint as much as it is from a recreation amenity. Carolyn, do you want to add anything?
I think that the discussion throughout this evening, early in our time together now, actually have some really nice compliments to them. I think that I've taken several notes about how we've got some important baselines to get established for this plan, so that you all have, this 10 to 15 year sort of guide to keep coming back to and hone as you get things in place. I think there are some things that are right off the bat, types of efforts that are going to make a lot of sense and that really will make a lot of headway too, right? So the baby steps coupled with all of the big ideas coming together. It's been great. Appreciate it.
Yep, very good discussion. Very good discussion. Anybody else? Any final thoughts, prophetic things? Okay, enjoy St. Patrick's Day. Stay out of trouble.
Yeah, and just one more thing to jump in. We are going to have 2 more sessions with public outreach similar to this one in April and May. So the dates will be determined, and we'll be sending out an invite very soon.
Yep, so stay tuned.
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank
Right.
you.
Bye now.
Bye.